Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and it's Adam Caplan, and we've got a really, I would say, thought-provoking and really informative, insightful Inside the Birds podcast today for all of our wonderful listeners. Adam, the Eagles, they have a huge game on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's really big for both teams involved, but we're not going to just turn the page just yet to that Steelers game. There are some lingering issues stemming from their win over the Carolina Panthers that have made the headlines. And, we have to discuss about it because I think the big concern that a lot of people have had, and we have tried to ourselves distance this year's Eagles team from last year's Eagles team. But what's the famous line in the movie? No matter how hard I try to get away, you suck me back in. And it feels that way. And obviously, Brandon Graham made some comments about the relationship between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. And of course, AJ Brown made responses to questions in post game that people, I guess, really ran with, interpreted as criticism or extra frustration. So there's a whole lot to parse through here. I've got a couple of thoughts on it. I'm going to start with you, just in
Sure.
general, on how the Eagles kind of move forward from this and what you made of all of it.
So, you and I have covered BG, since 2010. I don't know super well, but I always enjoy seeing him and reminiscing and whatever. You should see him at a golf event every year. So we all know how good of a guy he is. I happened to hear the interview on both days on WIP. He has a show on Monday night, and then I heard him with Joe DeCamara and John Ritchie on Tuesday morning. So just like you thought he would do, he owned it. He was contrite. None of that surprised me. But I have to say, he didn't back off of what he had said about AJ, about talk of just because AJ never said anything about Hurts, by the way, his comments
Correct.
after the game. He just talked about the passing game. But he did say like about AJ's comments after the game. He just mentioned that again. So he didn't back off that. But I knew what he meant. Again, context is everything. You actually have to hear the whole interview. The problem sometimes with social media, I'm not blaming WIP by the way,
Mhm.
but just try, folks, make up your own mind. If you listen to both days, because BG's a passionate guy. I mean, he's the oldest player in the football team, I believe, correct? At
Oh,
30,
I mean, he has
36,
to be.
he has to be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Without looking at like sometimes like a long snapper might fool you because
True.
Jordan Boss was in his late there, but there's no way Rick Lovato's older than him. So anyway,
No, I think
but look,
Slay is probably the second oldest guy
yeah,
in
and
this.
Slade turns
Three or
34 in
four
January.
years.
Correct.
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. But PG is, and he's a wise old guy, so to speak, who owned it. He knew he had to,
right.
he knew he had to. But it came from the heart, by the way. He cares deeply, as everybody knows. Now, remember when Britton Covey made his comments was it a year ago?
It
Or
was, well, no, it was yes,
Super
it was
Bowl?
last year. It was last February at Radio Row, talking about the collapse of the team last year.
Right. And now some people say, oh, he's a punt return. He shouldn't be saying anything. Okay, fine. But see, Mike Gill said this on Tuesday with me, and it's fair to say, if Brandon Graham speaks the truth in one interview, maybe he thought he shouldn't have said some things, or what he feels is the truth. Now he went back on that. He also said he didn't quite understand. He kind of spoke out of turn, maybe a little bit, just listening to BG's comments. But Mike said though, look, when a guy like BG speaks up, he speaks from the truth. Like
Yep.
he believe. Now you could choose to believe what you want about what BG said, but when a guy like that, who's super well respected, speaks up, you got to listen. I mean, I take this stuff seriously. So you asked me what my reaction was. Kind of taken aback, but the stuff that was it was actually kind of it just it's so funny because when this stuff happened and it happened to be about the revolved around the quarterback, whatever. I'm like, please, Terrell Owens, don't join in. So because you texted, you and I were texting over this,
Yeah,
and then you sent me the link. I'm like, it can't be,
I know. I
and
know.
it is because I have it.
Talk about trying to get away from something and it still gets sucks you
And
back
then
in. I
how
mean, we're
about
20
infect?
years removed from this stuff, man.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, that I was joking with our Patreon members on Discord last night. You and I should do an all-season show just on the player-to-player beefs and issues, and then also front office stuff. Boy, that one is a little bit deeper.
Oh yeah.
Oh, geez.
It's
But
actually some of those are worse than the player ones, to be honest.
yes, that's why I said it. Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. I mean, actually very ugly. Although what I forget which guy brought it up about the Hugh story, the Hugh and T.O. story, the flip flops and the
Yeah.
way they threw it out, and that was a joke. But look, I'm not saying it's not nothing. Like last year's was something
Right.
when Desai got reassigned and the defense collapsed. Now, what we didn't quite know that last year was the relationship between Sirianni and Hertz was frayed a little bit.
Hmm.
And now I know there was some local reports, and I know ESPN had a report which I thought was pretty interesting. A couple things I was not quite aware of. Some stuff I was. Some
Hmm.
stuff that's actually not out there. I think you and I know about kind of how the people weren't really seeing eye to eye with the offense last year, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But everything I've heard, I've looked into it. That seems fine.
Right.
Nothing out of the ordinary. But to move this along, my final thought before you take it away here is that it's something we'll watch. It's just really I'm a huge AJ Brown supporter because I talked to the Titans. I don't know how many times about him over the years, and then after the trade, just to get more intel. Pretty good dude, by the way. Now,
Hmm.
is he emotional sometimes? Yes. Comes from the heart. I respect people that speak from the heart. Now, it's one thing if he spoke up after the game and said, "Oh man, I got to get my targets." He never said that.
Correct.
Never said it.
Yep.
So, look, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Sirianni's going to have to address it on before practice. I don't. It's not like you'd have a team meeting about it. But the bigger crisis, to be honest with you, when everyone's throwing knives at Nick, nationally, locally, and Nick talked to the team about it, and I know the players talked about it. I was told by multiple people. That to me was actually you could call it whatever the hell you want, a mini crisis, whatever. They got through it, no problem. And Nick had to mature a little bit as a coach. He has.
Hmm.
Boy, the players love him, by the way. Boy, they really do.
They
I should
do.
mention.
Yeah, he's always on their side. He always has
Yeah,
their backs. I thought Jason Avant said just what you said in Q&A that came out Tuesday morning. He said this is Nick's opportunity to show that he can galvanize the troops. Actually, he already said he expected him to do it to show why he's such a good coach is because he has this ability to galvanize people, be the glue, and bring people together. And I
yeah.
agree with you. I don't think this is not like T.O. Donovan where everybody's
Oh
fractured and
God,
divided.
no.
This is
Yeah,
this is the ripple compared to that. We lived through that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but there are two things you said that I think are important, and I think when we move the conversation forward, that they're important that they get addressed and cleaned up going forward. Okay, because we know where there's smoke, there's fire. Like a little crack can become like last year a big fissure if you allow it to. So you said Brandon Graham is a smart guy, and he walked back the whole relationship between Hertz and AJ, which I'm glad he did.
Kind of
Uh,
said he didn't know. Basically,
right,
he
right,
just
right,
assumed because of what AJ said, and you can't.
right.
He
These
never
guys, by
should.
the way, there's plenty of
Yeah,
scenes, clips out there of AJ and Jalen celebrating a touchdown, like as
yeah,
recently as before the game when they were laughing it up. Like, so they're not arch enemies, in case
yeah.
anybody thought that. But the part that he did not walk back, and in fact, Brandon Graham, as you heard also on Monday morning on WIP, that he doubled down on is he kept saying you still have to keep your emotions in check. Brandon Grahams knows this. He's been around. He's seen a lot of football. He knows what happens when you don't keep your emotions in check, when you take things out to the media and don't express yourself the right way and the way the media runs with that and what that does to the city. Because Brandon Graham has seen that year after year after year living here in Philadelphia. And I believe Brandon Graham is definitely sending a message to AJ Brown about, hey, we're 10 and 2. We're not, we've won 9 games in a row. We're 10 and 2. Nobody says that you have to love everything about the team because even some teammates after the game are saying we need to improve this. We're not happy
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
But your body language as one of the leaders of the team was pretty lousy after that game.
That's the part. But I just
Yeah.
forgot to mention that was. I know some people on social media were not happy. I don't know if I saw it after the Calcaterra touchdown.
Hmm.
He's celebrating with maybe Devontae, and then maybe AJ kind of thought he should have got the ball or something. I don't know. I didn't
Maybe
see
after
him.
the Devontae Smith one because
One of the
honestly,
two of them. I didn't see.
honestly, it seemed like the play was designed to go to AJ Brown, but it went
Right.
to Devontae Smith.
No,
Yeah.
but Calcaterra's dancing around, and I don't know.
Um,
Some people said he could have handled. I didn't see it. So, but the bottom line is,
mhm.
yeah, that's
The
fine. The
body
body
language
language
wasn't
stuff.
good. Right.
That it's not the first time this has been brought up about AJ since he's been here. But he's a stand-up dude. He's just a really good guy from what I understand behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Really good teammate. But yes, he's not perfect. Body language has got to be better, particularly when you're a leader. Everybody looks up to him,
Right.
you
So
know?
that was my second takeaway is if you're AJ Brown, as we move it forward here, I don't think I don't think the things are going to be radically different going forward with the Eagles offense. We'll talk about it when we get to tape study. It
Yeah.
can be a little better and things can improve certainly, and he can get the ball more, but it may not. So he's going to have to accept wins until they lose, whenever that is, whether it's Super Bowl playoffs, next two games, who knows what it's going to be like, right? Until it really becomes a situation where the team is needs to do way better, right? I mean, your body language as a leader, and again, I'm big on being authentic. I'll never tell somebody how to act, but you are a leader and how you present yourself matters. And I think if he had expressed himself the same way Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson did when they said, "Hey, we won, but we know we got to be better."
Yep.
If AJ Brown could figure out a way to say we need to be better, but I'm glad we won instead of what's wrong, passing game. Is it tough to get in a rhythm? Yes. He was obviously making a statement with what he was saying that he didn't need to make in that moment.
Yes.
So I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. So he's going to have to embrace winning
Yeah.
ugly at times, no matter how bad he'd like it to look pretty,
By the way,
because
on
winning is
that,
winning.
by the way, with the Titans, Derrick Henry in the run game, the defense, Mike Vrabel.
Right,
Hello,
right,
this is not new to you.
right.
Just want to bring that up, and I know I know with the Titans is always challenging for with the passing game because they just weren't going to throw the ball a lot. Now, the one thing, and I was talking to Mike Gill about this on Tuesday. We didn't know. We knew with Barkley they were going to be more for they at least be a balance offense. This is not a balance offense. This is a running offense. First time in Jeffrey Lurie's career tenure here, 30 years. It starts with a run, it ends with a run. Oh, and it's every once in a while they'll throw a football. Like I didn't. This is crazy how committed they are to the run. They're winning, as you said, but the sustainability of it. Once we get the playoffs, the schedule gets harder. Uh, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, you that's the point you made is the salient one of everything we've talked about. That it's probably not going to change
Right.
because they're not going to. They don't drop him back very much.
Yeah.
Jalen's not dropping back 30, 35 times. It's low 20s completion rate. Completions are in the low teens. AJ's getting selected targets. It's just the way it is. Now, could there be a game but we haven't
Sure.
seen a game where they completely can't run it. Like that, we've been waiting for that one to see if
I
they
don't
can.
think that's going to happen at this point.
Right. I mean, even you stop Barkley for a half, he gets it done. They still got it. He still got over 120 yards. So
Right.
we'll see what happens. But the stuff we heard during the season last year, it became a little bit bigger than we expected.
Hmm.
I don't get now. I know we're in what week is it? 15? Is it 15? Right. This is because BG because of WIP and it got blown up, and I don't blame their social team for blowing it up. Hey, he said it.
He
It's your
said it.
job. Yeah,
Yep. And again,
absolutely.
the emotional part that he's talking about, he's not walking back and he's sending a message to this team, which a good leader does, especially
Yeah.
he can't be there, right? But he's been through the wars, he's won a Super Bowl, he's been a Super Bowl hero. He's telling AJ, but also everybody as a team, chill out, keep your emotions in check. If you're upset with something, address it behind the scenes, but let's be one team.
Yeah.
Let's be united. And when the cameras come in and the microphones come in, if you're frustrated, figure out a way to be positive after a win. Nobody expects you after a loss to be, oh, yay, we're great. Although you would like people to say, hey, we lost the game, we'll get better, because that's what good veterans do. But like again, be authentic, but your body language means something. And that's what I think
The
Brett
words.
Graham was trying to
Yeah.
say. And I think that's an important message.
He could have just said this. Hey, really glad we won the game.
Hmm.
Past the game's a work in progress. We know that. You guys know you watch the games, but we're working on it. We'll be all right.
Right.
That'd been
I mean,
fine.
at least AJ learned. I think last year he left without talking to the media after a
Yes.
frustrating game, and that got blown up even more. So, oh, there's a big rift now, right? So he probably feels like damned if I do, damned if I don't. But listen, you pay a lot of money. You're a leader. You're not 18 years old. Like you can stand in front of a camera, say what you feel without projecting misery, because that was the issue last year. They were the most miserable 10-1 team ever. and that
Yeah, that's
settled the
right.
fracture. So be united, be with your. This is a much more talented team,
Yeah.
both defensively and even offensively, with Saquon Barkley than
Oh
last year.
God, yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
We're
it.
pretty good.
Those were my takeaways, and I don't think that there's too much more to make of that. Now
Nope.
we'll talk about the offense, right, and the struggles of the past game, and some of the things we're observing on the tape, and what we're getting from when we talk to people. And AJ is right in that it does have to get better. I mean, if they want to win a Super Bowl, Adam, you want to beat a team like the Lions. You want to beat a team that can score points, whether it's the Bills, who even in the loss scored 40 something points, whatever. You're gonna have to score points, and I do think they'll have to be better in that regard.
Correct.
Hey, Adam, before we go on, I wanted to ask you something. Have you ever been to New York City to see the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall?
No, I've actually been to concerts at MSG.
Hmm.
Only a couple. I say concerts, only probably like two. I've been to, I went to a Knicks game, never saw Rangers, my fake New York voice. But yeah,
1940. Clap, clap,
exactly. Yeah,
clap,
but I
clap,
can't say it anymore.
clap.
See, they
I
they
can't
did
say
win
it
in
anymore.
'93. Yeah, I remember working the apparel business, and even in Philadelphia, whatever New York, when I worked for Models, it was just crazy when they won the cup with Mark
Right.
Ness and that group. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
But no, seeing a show at New York or anything is amazing.
it
Definitely.
is. I've been fortunate enough to see the Rockettes a couple of times. My mom took me when we were a kid, and then me and my wife took my kids. And
Nice.
next to a live sporting event, it's probably one of the most amazing holiday shows to see, no matter what religion you are, just because it's just an incredible show. The Nutcracker, the dancing, everything, the entertainment, and to see it at Radio City Music Hall, where we've also covered NFL drafts in the past, is just part
Oh
of
yeah,
the
that's right.
joy. Yeah, it's part of the joy of seeing live events, whether it's a sporting event and whether it's a show. And Radio City Music Hall, the Rockettes, you can get tickets to see them along with any sporting event you want to see. Sixers at Wells Fargo, Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, whatever it is, using Game Time Picks. It's that function on the Game Time app that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time filtering through thousands of tickets to find the right one because that's why Games Time Picks is there. They've got all these deals. The super deal is one of their tiers. They have other great tiers that show you the best value for where you're sitting. And of course, you get to see the view from your seat right on the app. I think that's one of the best parts of the app, and it is a very user-friendly app. Just a couple of taps with your thumb or your finger, however you use it. You can have tickets and you see the prices immediately all in. There's no extra hidden fees, and that's another great part of the Game Time app. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry that includes event cancellation protection and job loss protection. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's get to our injury update. And of course, our injury update is sponsored by our friends at Stretch Zone. You can get 10% off the first month of your membership if you mention Inside the Birds when you go to Stretch Zone or fill out their website form to sign up. Inside the Birds will get you 10% off your first month membership.
By the way,
Offense. Go,
real
okay.
quick,
Yeah.
just going to say, folks, you go to stretchzone.com, right? It's so easy. It takes like 30 seconds. You fill the form out, you schedule it. You schedule your visit with them when you're available, not when they're available. You know what I'm talking about? It's like it's about you and you
Yep.
feeling good. And they're open from in the morning 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they have 12 locations in PA, New Jersey, Chester County, Haverford, near Suburban Square, Devon. You'll see me there in Devon sometimes near the Whole Foods or the Exton, in Whiteland Town Center, South Philly near Graduate Hospital, Montgomery County, Elkins Park, Upper Dublin, Dresher, in the Promenade off 611, Feasterville, Lower Southampton Village, New Jersey, Cherry Hill and Evesham Road, I believe where you go. We got to get Cosell in there, Mount Laurel and Centerton Square, where the Wegmans is, Franklin Lakes and Franklin Ave, Northfield, Tilton Road, Prince and Nassau Park Pavilion. Be like you and I. My wife goes as well. My wife loves it because she works at retail, so she stands up a lot. It gets her nice and loose, and she's a big kayaker. You're a pickleballer, no, you're a runner. Do it like we do it. Go to stretchzone.com, sign up for your free 30-minute stretch, folks. There's no obligation. Why waste this opportunity to feel better?
Oh, a free stretch. That is fantastic. A free 30-minute stretch at
Yeah,
Stretch Zone. All right, so let's talk about the Eagles injuries. Obviously, Britton Covey did not practice and did not play
yeah.
last week, and we
No, he
saw.
actually did work. He actually did
Yeah,
work.
I'm
That's
sorry, I meant play, not practice. I meant play.
right. Yeah. Here, because he when you have a neck injury, you got to get cleared for contact.
Hmm.
And that's the hope, is he does. I mean, it was kind of cool that he was out there last week. Wasn't sure what, because he was seen around the locker room, talking to teammates and feeling good, but you got to get cleared for contact. So Cooper DeJean returned the punt, the one punt that I saw. Because that got answered because whenever I asked you, you go, well, I can't see a not. You said that couldn't see Nia Smith doing it because he
Hmm.
hasn't done it this year, though he did it in college. You're right. In fact, Nia Smith was active but did not play. So that's look, there have other guys. Jahan Dotson could do it. There's some other guys who could do it, but keeping Cooper doing it was the thing, and it was only 1 for 2 yards. And by the way, Isaiah Rodgers was the one who returned that 27-yarder. Boy, he came close, by the way.
Yeah.
Kickoff
Yep.
came close to breaking it, but 27-yarder there.
Much to Vic Fangio's dismay.
I know. And people say Vic rules the rules. No, he has input, but they're going to do what's best for the football team.
Exactly. Dallas Goedert, we saw he went on injured reserve. I believe they made the move on Saturday.
Yep.
They opened
Yep.
up the spot. They signed EJ Jenkins, which, by the way, was very funny because when I was watching the All 22, even though I know he's on the 53, it's not like I go through it right before watching the All 22. And there was one play, and I'm like, who's this guy at the tight end spot? Right. I'm like, oh, yeah, duh, EJ Jenkins. So, you're just not used to seeing that in the game. But yes, he did get a couple of
Two
snaps
snaps.
in
Yeah.
that game. Yep.
Yeah.
So Goddard, it will be out 3 more games at least, and we'll see what goes
Yeah.
on with there with the knee.
Yeah, for week 17, by the way. He could start practicing in week 18. Now, the thing about that will be the game has to mean something.
Right.
You don't bring him back, and not that, like, if the game doesn't mean anything, you don't play him even if he's available and not the starters. It doesn't work that way. So we may not see him till the playoffs. It's the way it is.
So the interesting thing will be if the Eagles are still 1 game behind the Lions going into the final week, will be the conference records, right? Because and the tiebreakers. Because even if the Lions were to lose and the Eagles were to win, a tie record may not just do it because they didn't play each other.
Yeah,
There'd be no
yeah.
comment. It would be conference record, I believe, would be the next tiebreaker, and then you won't even know until the last week of the season, right? Because they're both playing conference games the last week of the season. So I could see it very easily mattering. And then Nick would have to decide, is it worth it still to play everybody and maybe see if the Lions, can you mathematically get the number 1 seed still going into the last?
I mean,
I guess what I'm saying is they might be mathematically able to, but it might be a really low
oh, the risk.
possibility. So
Yeah,
like
versus
you
one.
you
It's
do the
true.
whole risk reward thing, especially since we don't know what time each team is playing right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because yeah, by the way, that they don't put the times out for week 18
Right.
because of that. They want the best possible scenario to make it exciting. But coaches, just talking to coaches about this over the years, like it depends on the situation. There's so many things that go into whether you're going to play a guy or not. If the guy's healthy enough to play, but you'd be better off sitting him,
Hmm.
that there it depends on the week situation. Do you have could you afford to sit the guy? Now, early in the season, again, now if it's a game or you really need it, you're going to play it.
Hmm.
But week 18, if the game's not, if there's very little on the line, like if it's having one better seed, you're moving up, that you're not going to get the Detroit seed, let's say, but if they're going to win the division, we know that's going to happen. It's just a matter of which seed do they get. If it comes down to that in the NFC, because
Hmm.
right now it's hard to imagine if Detroit the Eagles are going to be the number 2 seed. I mean, there's just no way. If the Eagles don't win, if Detroit's number 1, the Eagles will be number 2. Well, Seattle's playing well right now, but they're still 3 games back of the Eagles. So most likely the Eagles will be the number 2 seed.
Hmm.
That and again, we'll wait for a couple weeks to talk more about this. But you make a really good point. There's so much against playing Goddard, even if he's ready. We don't even know that he'll be ready for week 18, which would be the
Hmm.
first week you can play, eligible to play. You got to get in practice first, and they got to take a look at him. But there's so much to go. There's so many scenarios that go into it, whether you're
Yeah.
going to play a guy or not.
And by the way, just to illustrate my point, right now, as we, sit here in the middle of the week, the Lions have not only a one-game lead, but they also have a one-game lead in conference play. Okay. So the
Yeah, the
Lions right
Vikings.
now are, I believe, 8-1, whereas the Eagles are 7-2 in the conference. So both teams play non-conference opponents. So the Lions play the Bills this Sunday. The Eagles play the Steelers. So let's say the Lions lose and the Eagles win. Now the Lions and Eagles have equivalent overall records, but guess what? The Lions are still in the lead for the tiebreaker because they still have a better conference record because they're both of them are playing non-conference teams.
And it's funny, the Eagles and Lions have both lost to the not Vikings, to the Bucks. Now, I hate to even bring the Vikings up because everybody dismisses them. Everyone does. Like no one, it's hard to believe they only have two losses.
Mhm.
But look, God forbid the Vikings get into this conversation. And look, it could
That's a great
happen.
point. It's a
It
great
could
point.
happen. And to really screw this thing up, I cannot believe it. I don't know. It's obviously it's been a great coaching job. Kevin O'Connell's amazing. Brian Flores is amazing. The fact that Sam Darnold is one of the biggest reclamation projects in the last 20 years. I mean, this guy was given up for dead.
Hmm.
Dumb mistake after dumb mistake. He looked like he was scattershot, just finished.
Yep.
This shows coaching matters. If it ever mattered, it matters with this guy, Darnold and O'Connell. You cannot be kidding. But
By the
it's just
way,
happening.
the Vikings are who the Lions play the final week
I
of the
saw that.
season.
I'm looking at this because I'm get look. It's a factor. I mean, we'll wait
Yeah.
a couple more weeks, but God forbid the Eagles beat the Steelers and the Bills lose. I mean, the Bills win against yeah, it's actually in Detroit. Oh boy, the Bills are going to travel a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
We'll
definitely.
see.
So really interesting week shaping up here in the NFL. So those are is that all the Eagles injuries that we talked about on offense? Yes. So Eagles injuries on wow, we went way off the rails there. Eagles injuries on
You
defense.
did. You brought
I
it up
did. I definitely took this in a
because it
different
could
direction.
happen. What else could happen? Yeah.
Reed Blankenship. Now, I think we mentioned that he was out. He wasn't practicing on the field, but he was out on the sideline last week, which is part of the protocol. You got to get out in some daylight and see how you respond to that. So I think today is obviously a big day if they can get him onto
Hmm.
the practice field. It's as we always say, it's not the be all end all, but it helps you get one step closer to then getting your clearance and the independent neurologist clearance if you can get through a day of practice.
Yeah. So the big thing is for him football specific exercise. I'm looking at the protocol
Hmm.
that the NFL sent me prior to the season started. So of the five, the big thing for him is to get he needs to be at step four, which is non-contact drills. He really needs to he needs that by Friday. Like that's got to happen. Now, he didn't practice, he didn't do anything last week other than he watched, which is, as you said, the big anyone is if you talk to anyone who's ever had a concussion, man, it's bad if they can't see if they can't be around daylight. That's bad.
Right.
Sometimes you see guys wearing glasses and stuff when they're struggling with it. So,
Definitely.
but they need him to get to the phase four and then get cleared through phase five. So we'll have to see what happens here. But yeah, McCollum, we'll talk to Cosell, Greg, when we do the show on Thursday, the tape show about if he had any comments on McCollum filling in for him. But and remember, Sidney Brown had that knee injury. He was
Mhm.
actually. Yeah, he's had it actually for a couple weeks, a little bit longer than he actually went on the injury report late 2 weeks ago, then didn't do anything last week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, twin brother Chase having a much more productive year
Oh,
so far. He's having a
so
great
good.
year for
Such
the
a good
Bengals.
player.
Yeah,
Yep.
very, very good. So also and this is, the Eagles need, at very least, they need some bodies and depth. Edge rusher Bryce Huff, who underwent that wrist procedure and is on injured reserve. This is the last week that technically he would have. This Steelers game, I believe, is the
Yes.
fourth game,
Yep.
and then the Eagles will hope that he can start practicing by next Wednesday in preparation for the Washington game and be in that 21-day window.
Yeah, and the key there is like it's not like it's a knee, right? It's
Right.
just it has to heal.
Yeah.
And wrist surgeries are typically 6 to 8 weeks.
Hmm.
So yeah, it certainly would be surprising if he's back before the end of the regular season. But the reason why they had remember they were hoping to delay anything being done. So they decided to do it when they did it to get him back, hopefully for the playoffs. Because you just mentioned it, they need and the thing is, and we'll get into the snap counts a little bit later.
Hmm.
and Charles Harris actually played a little bit, but Jalix Hunt, and we love the story. It's a great story, but man, he's very raw, and he's having to play way more than they probably want him to. And just for as much as people say, "Oh, Bryce Huff isn't very good," it's not about that. It's about having bodies available.
Exactly.
You
It's
know,
about
make
keeping
guys healthy.
fresh, having
Yeah,
a rotation. And by the way, it's not like Bryce Huff was the worst edge rusher in the league. He just
yeah.
wasn't performing to standard. He was making a couple, he was starting to get to a point where he was making a few plays per game. And all you need is one or two plays, right? To maybe swing a game every once in a while. So yeah, to your point, whatever reps he's able to play when he comes back are valuable not only for him and his development and adding to the pass rush, but helping the other pass rushers like Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith, who are still young players trying to learn their fit and trying to improve as along the way.
Yep, yep.
All right, so interesting. All right, the two practice squad guys were elevated. Big props to Andrew DeCecco. He was all over this last week. That Andre Sam was very likely to be even before they announced that like the safeties would be out. He had a strong feeling Andre Sam was going to be elevated from the practice squad. He was, and so was fullback Kerry Blasingame. And Adam, I told you last week. I mean, Blasingame was fullback, but someone's going to have to take some snaps over on special teams, and I believe Blasingame probably played more special team
Ton.
snaps, yeah, than field fullback snaps.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. God, yeah. It was 1 to 15. But look, they're going to keep this fullback thing. It surprises me. I thought because remember, Van Sumer was so athletic,
Mhm.
and Greg had that note about he had heard from the building that he had the best hands on the football team, and it's funny, but maybe he did. Hey, whatever. But now that Van Sumer's gone until next year, I was looking at the workout list last week, and I think Blasingame might have been the only guy that fullback they worked out.
Mhm.
No, I know he blocked for Derrick Henry, and that hey, it makes sense if you just match the philosophy. The Eagles are this run first team. Okay, but without Sidney Brown, who's an unbelievable, like amazing gunner, man, that's a big one.
Mhm.
And on your point, without Sidney Brown, Blasingame played 15 snaps on specials. Andre Sam, who we talked about this Saturday, if they brought him up, he would only play specials, and he did. That's exactly what happened. Now, although he would have been a vet, like if someone got hurt, he would have to get snaps at safety.
It would happen one more injury because when
Yeah,
CJ came out is when Maddox came in and you had Maddox and
yeah.
McCullough and you were one
Yep,
man away from right
that's it. The
from
last man
Andre Sam
standing.
coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I still don't understand the one thing that puzzles me. This staff clearly does not like Eli Ricks like the other staff did, the previous defensive staff.
What makes you say that?
It just because again that it's like losing Jack Stoll, right? I know it's a minor thing.
Hmm.
The Dolphins still don't play him, by the way. He was inactive again. They haven't played him yet. But Ricks would have been the guy to let go instead of Stoll. Ricks will never contribute
Well, wouldn't that then sort of be wouldn't that make you think that they
on
do
defense.
see something in Eli Ricks? The fact that even though they're not playing him, they're keeping him on the 53. They feel like he would have been the most obviously cuttable guy for
Yes.
weeks now, but they keep holding on to him. So that would makes me think that they for not now, but for a year from now or two, they want to develop him. They want to see it through with him, and they liked enough to hold on to him. That's sort of the read I've got on it.
Maybe so, but I mean,
It's
he
hard to
only
play
played.
him because he's an outside corner this
He
year, which
can't
is
play
what he should
inside.
be.
Yeah, he can't play.
And there haven't been enough injuries at outside corner to get him on the field.
It's just, but again, the to me at this point, because I saw this in training camp where like, wow, he's really down on the depth chart.
Hmm.
Ringo had a much better camp. I get that. Ironically, and Ringo only play on special teams as well, but he's had playing time. He's their fourth corner.
Hmm.
Typically, you keep a fifth guy in your practice squad. You don't really need him up. But I get it. They were down on specialties because without City Brown, you got to divvy up the snaps um, and so forth. But the bottom line is, this staff. It was obvious in training camp they did not like this kid. They just
Right.
wouldn't. He was super down. They never would play him. I know he's not as fluid as the other guys, but
Right.
he was a great story last year. I mean, he was kind of came out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Great
Yeah.
training camp and did everything they asked. But it's a shame that they lost Jack Stoll because of their tight end problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's obviously low. I guess he would be the 1-2 outside corner fourth outside corner on this group behind Ringo as the number three outside, or actually
No,
behind
Rogers.
fifth.
Rogers is
Sorry, fifth.
fifth.
Right,
My
right.
point.
So that shows you what they think. But the fact that they've never cut him or even tried to cut him, bring him back to the practice squad makes me think that they're looking down the road. They're probably thinking this is Slay's last year. So you'll have Quinyon Mitchell. They don't know if they're going to move DeJean outside next year. He might continue to be nickel. You're going to need some outside. And by the way, Rogers is only on a 1 year deal.
Hmm.
It makes me think that maybe they see him as a third corner or a fourth corner in a year or two, or at least competing for that spot.
I got one for you. I got a reason why.
Okay.
I totally forgot about this. So Seattle loves tall corners, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you now, not that he's really tall, but do you know he's playing a ton of snaps? It's unbelievable. This
Is it
is like
Josh
hard.
Jobe? Is he playing for
He
them?
plays a ton of snaps. I've been
Oh,
meaning to talk about this. I'm not. The Eagles did not listen. He didn't do it here. Okay, Josh Jobe was only a special teams player. They tried him on D. It just what he couldn't do it. He got benched last season.
yeah.
I don't know what the hell Mike McDonald sees in him.
Well, he was also getting terrible coaching last season, if we're being honest. I mean,
Okay, that's fine. But the kid, he's basically some weeks he's the third outside corner. It really depends on a couple factors. But he's playing a ton of. Last week he played over 60%. He's had a bunch of weeks over 50% of the snaps on defense.
wow. Good for him.
It's maybe like I don't know. Maybe Mike McDonald liked him coming out of the draft a couple years
Well,
ago.
they're
But
doing well. They've won
I know their
three in a
defense has
row.
turned around.
Yeah, their defense is doing well. They've
They were
won
really
three in a
bad,
row.
and now they've
Yeah,
turned it around. So
yeah.
I just remember, I'm always looking around the league and see what trends there are and see who's playing that whatever, see some interesting stuff. I almost fell off my chair when I was like, what? I'm like, who didn't play that week? They all played, but their starting outside corners were playing. Because Witherspoon could play inside or outside, but Reek Wollins kind of revived his career. He got benched a little bit last year. The Kobe Bryant kid's more of a safety. And he's the third corner. So okay, it's what a story. Good for Josh Jobe. It's a nice story.
Yep. Yep. So that is the deal with Eagles injuries. Steelers injuries are pretty interesting. There's some
Big.
decent names in
Yep.
here. George Pickens, kid. Oh man, my fantasy team. Anyway, nobody wants to hear about that. But
Yeah, good.
George Pickens being out last week was not, especially watching the Steelers light up the scoreboard, was not helpful for them, and it wasn't helpful for me. He's got a hamstring issue. He obviously didn't play. Who was it against the Browns that they played?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike Tomlin, give him credit. Tomlin, it's always Tuesday. I know his stuff. Like I could predict what he's going to say. He always says he has this great line. We all let participation be our guide. Well, he's not expecting Pickens to work this week, so
Right.
he said I would call him. He goes if you press me on it, I'd say he's out or doubtful. Well, here's what happened. The real story here is that he had hamstring tightness, as I understand it. They wanted to be smart about it, and they held him out of the Cleveland game. But then he had an MRI after the game, and it wasn't. It was it sounds like they were kind of surprised that it was not quite what they were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
He's not playing. You're not. You're George Pickens is their passing game. He is. It is, and it's not like they have Devontae Smith. It's not like they have. It's like Mike Williams. They finally started playing him a little bit, and Mike Williams had a good game. I know they were pretty happy about that, but not having George Pickens changed it. I give them credit. They still scored a bunch of points and did well.
Yeah.
I guess apparently they got off to a slow start. Then they started moving the football better. They had an Eagles type of first quarter, but they started moving it. But the bottom line is it changes the way, when you don't have a big time number one receiver, it changes the way you run offense. That they went with a major committee, went with Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, my guy Calvin Austin. I met Calvin a couple years ago, who played for our friend Ryan Silverfield at Memphis. But they won. They scored 27 points, and
Yep.
they had a really good win.
Yeah, I think for them, watching the Steelers as much as I have this year, they have guys who can move the chains for them. And you throw Pat Fryermuth in there. I'm
Yep.
not just saying that because he's at Penn State. He's a good tight end. So they have guys who can move the chains. I think we've had this discussion about what the Eagles offense is like without AJ Brown. Yeah, you got guys who can move the chains, but you don't have a guy that you can just throw it up to and just physically imposes his will on a defense or against the defense the way George Pickens does. George Pickens can just do things that normal human
Yep.
being wide receivers can't do. So yeah, it didn't affect them against the Browns, at least not as far as scoring points. But without him, they're not the same. And the Eagles, I'm sure, will be thankful if Pickens is not able.
By a miracle, it would take a miracle. I mean, it's a receiver. It's a hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
He is their passing game. They can't afford to be without him. And just to add to that, they think he's like the best 50-50 ball guy they've seen. Like he's crazy. I was at a practice this summer, and I know he wasn't being cocky or anything. He just said he was like he made this play, he made a couple plays back to back. He just smiled because he knows he's great.
Hmm.
And he was on the sideline. He's just I guess players know when they're really good. Like he didn't have to celebrate because he beat the guy badly. He just went up and got it with one hand, and I'm like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah, he's
And
got some Calvin Johnson in
a
his
little bit, yeah. He's just not as big as
not as
Megatron.
twitchy, not as big.
Yeah,
Right, right. But
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 this
he's got
dude,
something
he
in there.
attacks it. He attack. Look, and so does AJ Brown, by the way. But
Mhm.
Pickett's a little taller. But we'll see. Because Frymuth is a good player, and all of a sudden Russell Wilson's finding him. Russell Wilson's spreading the ball around a lot more. He's getting more comfortable. Russell, I know Sean Payton couldn't stand Russell, but Russell had his own office in Denver when Sean Payton took over. He said, "Enough of that. You won't have an office here anymore."
Mm.
But that's another story for another time.
There you go. Unfortunately for the Eagles, the Steelers, yes, are improving defensively. They got guys back. They got Highsmith back, who's an important outside linebacker, pass rusher, coverage dropper for them. Larry Ogunjobi, their defensive tackle, we'll see. He's been dealing with a groin injury. We'll see. The cornerback, Dante Jackson, probably played better than some might have thought because he was always kind of, had moments in, was it Carolina, right? That he was,
Yes, the Panthers thought he was too passive, is what I'd
yeah.
heard. So
There's something about going to play for the Steelers though, where all of a sudden like your blemishes are hidden and your strengths are capitalized. So
yeah, you're right. He's revived his career. And then Deshaun Elliott, boy, they think I got to look into this. They think he's played at a Pro Bowl level. I've heard he's played well, but he's got a hamstring injury now. It sounds like it just tightened up.
mhm.
Monty KZ, who's been with them for a couple years, you might remember him from the Falcons. He would start. The Ogunjobi's not been great for them. He's paid a lot of money. He's been just okay. You might remember him from the Bengals and the Browns, but you're right, man. This defense, all of a sudden, like a lot of no-name guys are getting the job done.
You sound like Troy McClure from The Simpsons. You might remember me from such teams as the Browns and the Falcons.
Yeah. Oh, Deshaun Elliott. Speaking of Deshaun Elliott, this is fourth or fifth team. Never did anything.
I know it's
Playing
crazy. But
great.
listen, Mike Tomlin is a genius. I think he's fantastic. And I'm
Terrell
mad at
Austin.
myself. I am so mad at myself for not picking the Steelers to make the playoffs this year. I just it was
Oh, I picked him to win a division. I got
such a
skewered.
fool's thing for me to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I started regretting it earlier. I'm like, okay, I should have picked Baltimore. That was stupid. I just not only do I believe I know that Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 17. I get that, but he's never had a losing record,
Yeah.
and he's a hell. This is a really good roster. Their offensive line. I'm so interested. I can't wait to break this game down with Greg later in the week and all the other intel we get. But the Eagles, the Eagles pass rush, and I know they brought some heat against Bryce Young. I'm so interested to see because this Steelers offensive line has been way better than people expected, but so is the Eagles pass rush. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see how they hold up.
There's a very interesting history of this game. We'll get into it a little bit on the pregame
Since
show.
1965. Yeah.
Well, it's the last I would say in the last 10 years, the home team, I believe, usually wins and dominates. Like that the Eagles killed the Steelers, if I'm not mistaken, the last two times they
Two
played
years. 2 years ago.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then the last two times the Eagles were in well, did they play them 2 years ago, right? Where was that? That was Philadelphia,
Here,
right?
Philly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the research. So this is goes to tell you how things change.
Uh-huh.
Only 8 starters are left from that team for the Steelers. Only 8 of 22.
That is crazy.
They've changed it
Yeah,
in. Well, they disappointed. They were disappointing, and they had enough.
right.
And AJ Brown killed them. He had 3 touchdowns, I think, in that game.
Yeah. But when they play in Pittsburgh, I believe the Steelers overwhelmingly win. I'll always remember 2004, right? McNabb, T.O. Here we go again, McNabb and T.O. How about that?
Hey, I'm
Ripping
sold
everybody
off.
apart. Hmm.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember that one in
7 and
04.
0 was it? And then they went into Pittsburgh and it was like, nope, there goes your undefeated season, brother.
And I remember, folks, you could correct me. Was it when David Akers had the onside kick for first play of the game?
Wasn't
Was
that
it,
Dallas? I don't even
no, no,
remember.
no, it was
Oh, was
Pittsburgh.
that against Pittsburgh? I
I
forget.
thought it was.
Okay.
Tell us in the comments on YouTube if you want to. I just distinctly remember being shocked by it. Like,
Hmm.
what the hell? And it might have worked. If I'm right, it's early 2000s, but Anyway, I mean, I'm looking at their offensive line. It's incredible. Only one guy remains. Deontay Johnson's gone. Four new offensive linemen.
Hmm.
Kenny Pickett is comical. Kenny Pickett's with the Eagles.
Homecoming game.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right. Oh my God, Miles Jack. That tells you how long ago this was. Devin Bush, Miles Jack, Keller Witherspoon has been in like 50 teams. Terrell Edmonds, former. Wow, geez, how many former Eagles do they have on this team? This is just 2 years ago. No wonder they were bad.
Yep.
Look at the I mean, Arthur Mauletto's bad. God, they've had no. I mean, eight. Yeah, I counted eight. Only eight players are left.
So I hit this thing on the head. All right. The last
Good.
time the Eagles played the Steelers was in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia, we just talked about it. The Eagles won
Years ago. Yeah.
35-13. Before that was the game in Pittsburgh. The Steelers won 38-29. That was
What year was
2020.
that?
2020.
Oh,
Before that was 2016. The game was in Philadelphia. The Eagles won 34-3, another blowout. All
wow.
right. Before that, they played in Pittsburgh in 2012. The Steelers won 16-14. So not a blowout, but the Steelers won. Before that, 2008 in Philly, the Eagles win 15-6. What a weird
That
sweep,
game.
but
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
then, the Eagles win at home. Then before that, 2004, I just mentioned it. That was the Super Bowl year for the Eagles, but they were 7-0. They go into Pittsburgh. They lose 27-3. So whoever has the home field advantage usually wins this game over the last 10 to 15 years. And very often it's a blowout. I just think that's weird.
Mike Tomlin is so excited about this game. So
Oh, you
excited.
got to think that Saquon Barkley's
Yeah.
picture is all over their facility this week, right?
I should read.
No,
It's so funny you
Tomlin.
say that. What's
Uh-huh.
that?
You know Tomlin. His mission
Yeah.
is to hold Barkley under, I bet, 100. I bet you he's got like rewards for his D line. He's got I don't want to say bounty. That's not, obviously,
Sure.
that doesn't go on anymore. But I bet you he wants them eat, sleep, breathe, drink, nothing but stopping Saquon Barkley.
He was gushing. I mean, he knows that, most head coaches know the opponent's personnel pretty well. I mean, he was just gushing over Barkley and how he basically talked about how he improved and all this. Real quick before we get out of here, we do this from time to time. The '08 game,
Mm-hmm.
holy smoke, I didn't even know he was on the team then. We know Buckholder was in B West, but Lorenzo Booker, believe it or not, had 5 carries in that game. That's how long
Oh
ago.
my God, Lorenzo Booker. My
You know,
God.
wow, Hank Basket, 8 catches in that game. Holy smokes.
Unreal. All right. I don't really want to go through a bunch of tape observations. We'll do that with
Okay,
Greg
sure.
Cosell, but I have a big picture concept
Okay.
about that I want to talk to you about. But first, we'll pause to hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. If not, go to their website, peruse it, take a look around, all the inventory that they've got. Their customer service is fantastic. Pick up a phone. If you have a question, place a call. They'll be happy to answer it. You will get fantastic customer service with our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And again, SkyMotorCars.com. All right. So watching the All-22, Adam, and I want to go back to what I said about A.J. Brown and having to learn to accept things, right? Watching it, first of all, the Panthers blitzed the Eagles a whole lot. And I think the Eagles have become such a run team, as you mentioned, running more than anybody and more than you ever noticed, that it's become easier for their opponent to know when they're going to pass, right? Because everybody passes. And usually if you're running the ball, like the Eagles would run the ball 3 times in a row with Saquon Barkley, they'd do well. And then the Panthers would be like, well, a pass has got to be coming at some point, right? So then they would start blitzing, right? So I didn't think Jalen Hurts was as bad as the discourse was after the game. I think what happens is when you're only throwing 11 passes in the first half and two of them, they make a point, like as Mark Sanchez did, or as you saw, that he clearly just didn't hit an open receiver. It looks really bad. Okay. But there were plenty of times where he dropped back, not plenty of times, because again, only 11 passes, but A lot of their passing game now is off of RPO or play action because they're running the ball well. And it's hard when you're under center to turn around, fake a handoff, and then turn around and try to throw when they're blitzing because they're expecting you to pass at some point to have an opening or to be able to avoid the pass rush. And two or three times I felt Jalen Hurts had no opportunity to make a play because the Panthers were assuming pass at that moment and rushing him and getting to him. And there were a couple of whether it was like Kenny Gainwell or Cam Jurgens not doing a great job in either pass pro or blitz pickup. In general, the line played great. I'm just talking about these few times here when the Panthers decided to send extra men where it got dicey. So that goes back to the big picture concept. It's like, well, why are teams able to do this? Well, because the Eagles are running the ball a lot. So you're going to give up a lot of yards running, but they have to pass every once in a while, and that's when you can send the house if you want to. And then it goes back to, well, why are they running the ball a lot? Well, because when they tried the other stuff earlier because people are saying, can't they get AJ quick hitters early? Can't they get Jalen in a rhythm early? Can't they come out passing a little more so they're not just run, and then when it's pass predictable? Well, they tried that, right? So I kind of feel like the cycle of frustration here for the Eagles offensive coaches and the Eagles offensive players, right? And I think it can be better. They can work on it, but we are where we are because of the way the pass offense has been throughout the year, which has been inconsistent.
Yeah, I talked to our friend John DiFilippo after the game, and I asked him, I'm like, their pass game has been mostly extremely disappointing for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Not all Hurts' fault. I mean, certainly he needs to get rid of the ball faster. That has to happen. He's still taking way too long. But I just said, John, in general, how do you handle when your pass game, because John's been a play caller and a quarterback's coach, I was like, yeah, how do you handle this? He's like, you keep repping it. You don't throw your hands up. That's not coaching. You coach. You show on Monday morning. Go through the tape. You keep reinforcing it because you obviously ask what the quarterback saw. That's what you can't. It's hard to do it. John said it's hard to do it in game. You can't have deep, in-depth discussions about what happened until you have your tape study together, because everything's cleaned up for you and you go over the plays on Monday morning. So John said, "Look, it's real simple. You continue to coach them hard. You don't stop believing. Yeah, it's not quite what you want, but you keep coaching." And you have that belief that it's going to happen. I'm sure everybody's frustrated, but just because I wanted to ask him, I know he saw some of the game, but being someone who's been through this he's coached so many different quarterbacks, it's just curious what his reaction, or just how do you handle it when it's not what you want or it's not quite what you thought? And he just said, you keep coaching it.
Yeah,
because I think what happens is people ask, what's the problem? Because they'll figure out what the problem is, and then once you figure what it is, you keep repping it. And if the quarterback's not getting it, you just keep going over it and going over it. You don't yell at him, John. You don't browbeat the guy. You keep coaching him.
Right.
And it's communication, because it's not always going to be pretty. But with this talent that they have, even without Goddard, with this talent and the protection mostly that Hurts is getting, you just have to believe. Because we talked about the week before when Greg pointed out that great pass that Jalen made. I still think the best pass of the year. It's a pass he never would make, and he did it. He did it through the bang play over the middle. Beautiful. See again. I'm going to defend Jalen on this. This fact that Jalen will never make a pass over the middle is obviously not true.
Right.
He just has to do it. I can't answer it. No one can why he won't do it.
Right.
But he did it on that play. That was a best pass of the year to me.
Right.
Great.
So this is probably the frustration with Kellen Moore and the offensive coaches, is that you want to call plays to put him in position to succeed and to get your wide receivers, but you also want him to make the throws that are there. And like you said, he'll make the throw like that. Like we were talking about last week, we had some really nice throws from Jalen Hurts off play action, in a cover 3, right? But then, first pass of the game, was it? Second play, first pass, where AJ Brown is open on the corner route. And folks, I don't care what anybody says. We've talked to enough football people.
I know where you're going.
Got to throw that ball.
Yeah.
And Jalen, and just to give it, it's I believe it was a cover three, right? And the read is Devontae Smith on the crosser. J.C. Horn is the cover third corner, right? And his leverage, his butt is facing the sideline. His he's facing Devontae coming at him. So there's no way he, as great as you can put the skills of him, Deion Sanders, and Darrell Green in him, he can't do a full pivot rotation to get back and defend the crosser of AJ Brown, who's going toward the sideline. So you have JC Horn going toward the field, Brown going toward the sideline, and about four yards of separation at least between them. If Jalen just makes that throw, which by the way is one of his strengths, that throw is his strength of his.
Yeah.
But you heard Jalen in the press conference say, and this is why I say it's not necessarily processing or reading a defense. When people say he can't read a defense, they're wrong. He knew what he saw because he said in the press conference, I saw the cover three. I could have alerted to AJ Brown, but I also saw Horn there. And he said, and he was falling off, meaning he was sort of trying to in between Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. No, he was not going to be able to reverse course, turn around and cover AJ Brown. And by the way, even if he came close, you have AJ Brown. He makes contested catches.
He's always open. He says it.
But he's open. He's open. You got to throw it. You have to throw that ball. So that's where we go back to. They do try to get him plays to get him good looks early in the game, and then he doesn't make them. So at times, and crucial times, those count. Those count as much as the plays that he does make. So I understand the frustration. I don't know where the offense, where he and the coaches go from here, other than what you just said about John DeFilippo's point. You just keep trying. And I do think watching the game tape for the second straight week, I said this about the Ravens. I said they won, but I hope that we see a little bit more offensive poetry the next. I hope they don't get sucked into just run, play action. Like you got to give them a little bit more. They didn't. In fact, they're up 14-10 at the half. They come out in the third quarter, and this is how I think predictable they're getting at them. They came out with two tight ends, two receivers tight, Jalen Hurts under center, and you're thinking run, right? But the Panthers were like, nope, we think you're probably trying to spring a play action on this because you've been running so much, and you're in the lead now. So they put five guys at the line of scrimmage, but their linebackers never attacked the A gaps. They almost knew it was going to be play action, so that when Hurts dropped back, you only got a two-man route. They were all covered. So Hurts had nowhere to go with the ball. That doesn't do him any favors. It makes it look like he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not. His two-man route against 7 or 6 in coverage, that's not going to work, right? So what happened after that? They ran the ball 7 straight times. Okay. And now people are like, well, this is why you got to run. You got all the way from your 30 to Carolina's 34. But as we always say, Adam, you can run well, you can't run well, but eventually you're going to get to third down, right? They got to 3rd and 4. Yeah. What happened? He got sacked because they blitzed the bejesus out of him. And there really wasn't anybody open either on that play. Like, honestly, they covered it really well. He got sacked. When your whole game is running and just play action, you're becoming predictable. It's sort of like last year, just a different situation.
I don't know if Kellen Moore signed up for this. I just don't know if this is really what he wanted to do, but they've become this elite running team. Mm-hmm. But it just would be less predictable a little bit. I agree with your point. They're going to mix it up a little bit more, but we're going to look more into this, as we go forward about really what other teams think. I haven't actually asked that question to, it's fun to ask folks from other teams, what do you think of the tape? And they give us stuff, but I haven't really talked about, because they play calling, it's always subjective because they have no idea what they don't know how Hurts is coached and so forth. But I'm just from a tape study standpoint, just what does it look like to you? That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for.
Yeah. So that's what here's what I imagine Nick Sirianni and his staff, Kellen Moore, have to deal with. The two people sitting on the shoulder. And there's no right answer to this, right? It's, do we continue to limit the playbook, the passing game, make it all RPO and all play action, very little conventional drop back, and know that we're predictable and know that we're vanilla, but hey, we're 10-2. This is going to have to be the way we win the Super Bowl. Or do they have a little bit of foresight and say, I think we can win a lot of games this way. I don't know if we can beat the Lions or beat the Packers or beat the Bills or beat the Chiefs this way. And we need to open it up a little bit more. We need to get more variety and spice to this
Yeah.
passing offense if we're going to win a Super Bowl? I don't know the answer to that, Adam. I really don't. Because you could sell me that they can win this way. You could also sell me that
I'm
they
not.
can win this
I'm
way.
not trying to. I
No,
don't know.
my saying is, I'm sure you could tell. I'm sure the coaches are thinking we can win this way, but we can also lose this way. So I don't know what's the right way.
Well, guys got to get the ball and then pass game. There's no question. But I get Goddard's out, so that's that takes one piece away. But AJ Brown is an unstoppable player. They got to get him the football.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got to happen. And really, this week it's not going to be easy because the Pittsburgh they this season they shored up the run problem they had last season. They're pretty good run defense now, and they fortified their secondary. I still think some are beatable. Joey Porter Jr. 2 weeks ago had 6 penalties. Excuse me, 5 that counted.
Yeah.
So which is fascinating. So we'll see. I mean, he's a young guy. It's kind of comical that his dad was a big time pass rusher and he's a corner, but a pretty good one, by the way. Pretty good one.
Definitely loved him. All right. So that's going to pretty much do it. That'll be our observations there. And we'll get a little bit more, obviously a lot more into the tape with Greg Cosell on Inside the Tape. That, for those listening, is going to be out a little bit later on Thursday. It's normally up first thing in the morning. It'll probably be out a little bit early morning, 10, 11 o'clock-ish for those who are devotees of that show. And there are a lot. So we look forward to doing that. And that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.